morning, everyone. Gregory Ashe here, DATAMINDZ podcast, Where Science and Art Converge. Hope you guys are all having a great start to your day and have a great day altogether. First and foremost, I need to apologize just because start of the fourth quarter, convention season off to just an absolute freight train of a start. This episode has been delayed a little bit longer than originally anticipated. But with the start of convention season, I also even got to get on a couple of podcasts. Fred hopped on with Fred and Lou, Car Guys Coffee. Always a fun time with those guys. I don't know where they get all their energy from. I got to drink like 9 cups of coffee before I get on one of those podcasts. Also had a great time with Jason Harris on his Drive podcast. I was a little concerned at first, didn't know how well Jason was going to be able to multitask with driving and the whole podcast thing, but did an absolute amazing job and kept me safe. Also great to hang out with him. Got to hang out with a ton of people, got to sit in on a lot of speaking engagements, a lot of panels, and kind of really get in the mix with some of the dealers and the agencies there, and understand where everybody's going and looking forward to in the future, 2022, 2023, and beyond. And with that, one of the things that came up repeatedly, and it probably has a lot to do with, operating in a cookieless environment, was identity graph and identity resolution. And that's what I want to address today. And one of the biggest things that I saw in all of these speaking engagements was the way that identity graph and identity resolution were used interchangeably, like they had the same exact meaning. And the reality is they don't have the same exact meaning. Identity resolution is about identifying a device that a consumer is using with that consumer, and attaching an ID to it, where an identity graph is where that individual consumer sits with all of these IDs for all of their different devices, whether it be their cell phone, their laptop, their desktop, their iPad, whatever have you. And I think we just need to dive into, one, they're two different things. 2, what are the benefits? 3, how many different identity graph, identity resolution companies are out there, and what's possibly the best fit for you and your company. So again, as stated, what the difference is: identity resolution is identifying the device to the individual, and the identity graph is the actual compilation of that data for you to be able to do cross-device assimilation, so that if you're marketing to the cell phone, or if you're marketing to the iPad, OTT, connected TV, if you're, the list goes on. So getting into identity graphs and the different ways that they do it. Currently, it's pretty much all done with cookies or some type of hashed email address. Now, moving into a cookieless world, that becomes a little bit more difficult. Who's going to create the main, non-cookie identity graph? And there's so many out there to choose from. You have Universal ID, seems to be making a huge headway as being one of the main ways. But then you also see shifts in different industries. I believe it was Digital News Daily or something along those lines. I read an article yesterday where Omnicom Media Group is looking to push for self-regulation across the industry in OTT and connected TV, and coming up with a household ID rather than an individual ID predicated on streaming, where they brought up IAB's Taxonomy 3.0 as a potential. Now, obviously, it's something brand new. It's a brand new article, so I don't believe there's a foundation laid yet for that. It was more of a, hey, industry, we need to self-regulate. There's a lot of big brands that are questioning the shift because there is no industry regulation so far. It's still a relatively new technology. I wouldn't say it's still bleeding edge, as it's a few years old, but they're looking to self-regulate. So now we have OTT and connected TV, which is a marketplace that is seeing a massive shift, pushing for one direction of a household ID from a streaming perspective. And then on the internet side of things, we see a push for, all of these different types of universal IDs, and, each DSP is trying to come up with their own, as they all want to be the next best guy. So from a company perspective, when you're looking to market and making the decision of, well, which direction do I go? Okay, well, a lot of that's going to have to come down to what your particular use case is, what your target audience is or your target marketplace is, and which one of these brands, aligns with your core focus. Whether you're in automotive, whether you're in recreational vehicles, whether you're in hospitality, travel, you're really going to have to sit down and see where each one of them flourishes. And who they're aligned with on the data side and the data compilation side. So you're going to have to do a deep amount of research and pretty much just make sure that everything aligns with your, futuristic goals, as well as what marketplaces. Is your budget being spent predominantly on digital? Is your budget being spent predominantly on streaming? Is it, more traditional, and you're trying to figure out how to take someone traditional to your website and then initiate remarketing through some type of, ClickFunnels? And with that said, the other thing you're going to want to pay attention to when looking for identity resolution companies and identity graph companies is the difference between probabilistic and deterministic. So deterministic obviously means one-to-one, directly to the consumer. Probabilistic kind of lends more into the Omnicom's approach, where it's householded. So it's probably this person in the household, but it very well could be their spouse. So understanding whether or not your marketing dollars need to be direct to that individual, or if hitting the household is enough. For example, I'll use LiveRamp. They're one of the most well-known, been around probably the longest. They offer deterministic matching. They've been in the game. They've stubbed their toes. They've played in the sandbox for many years. So in the e-com space, LiveRamp is probably most likely your go-to when you're looking for an identity graph company that does really well in identity resolution, is backed by a ton of data and tons of hashed email data as well. I believe they cover right around 250 million consumers. So when you think about 360 million consumers in the U.S., break it down by age, there's probably roughly about 265 million individuals over the age of 18. So for them to have 250 million out of those 264 million covered, they're probably one of the go-tos in the e-com space. Another afterthought, and I wish I would have brought this up in the beginning, is device graph. Now, this is pure opinion here. I'm not a large proponent of just device graph without any type of identity resolution behind it. But device graph is something else that you're going to hear in the marketplace. You're going to have to see if it's a right fit for you. Essentially, it's just, for instance, mobile ad IDs. With no other behavioral characteristics tied to it, no lifestyle, no nothing. That's more of a blanket audience approach, or a traditional saturation approach, kind of our neighbor at postcard that you get in the mail. And I don't know that that's the wisest way to necessarily segment. There's in my personal opinion, much better ways to just saturate the market digitally from a traditional display perspective, rather than using a device graph to establish an audience. Personally, I believe it just raises your CPM in your advertising, and it spends more money with zero to little insight into who you're actually marketing to and whether or not they're your fit. But again, put an asterisk on that. That's my own personal opinion. So that's going to conclude today. I mean, I could probably ramble on and kind of stumble over and say the same things over and over, but I want to let you guys, get to your day, get on to work. Hope you guys have a great day, and I'll see you on the next episode of DATAMINDZ.